The title of the conference is Liberation-Based Healing and Practices. I guess when I first saw that title, it was, for me, a little bit awkward because liberation for me sounds like a noun. It sounds like a fixed thing. I'd rather use the verb form. So liberating seems to be a term that would fit better for the way I think. I don't think that we reach an end point. I mean, I think if we think of ourselves as reaching kind of this enlightened state, or we're now liberated, or we're kind of reach some kind of goal, I think it's possible for us then to think that we've made it and we stop. And I think one of the issues about liberating practices is that they have to always be vigilantly sought after. And so, I guess I kind of would prefer the gerund form, liberating, and it's a process that we're always trying to achieve rather imperfectly. And I think that's the stance that I use with doing therapy with social justice things, is that I had no clue about what some kind of final end state would be, where there was this kind of perfect world where there was justice for all. I think it serves as a thing to go for, but it's not in and of itself something that can be completely attained. So if you have that idea, then I think you're invited to kind of engage in practices that may not be gather momentum and steam. So, and you're not quite as open to possibilities other than just your divine plan about how it should happen. So for me, practices in family therapy, which is my field, that have social justice implications, have to include other ideas really not within family therapy. Social work and family therapy is a blend that I think that works. I happen to think that working with people in ways that invite them to grow have to be multiple disciplines. I mean, we cannot think of people are not, they have an economic part, they have an emotional part, they have a physical part, they have a spiritual part, they have a cognitive or psychological part, they have a social part. But I think that kind of chopping up the person into parts invites us with different disciplines to kind of work on just some domains, but we're whole people. And so, like with in therapy, if a psychologist works on a kid's way of thinking in school, and a therapist works with mother about her grief over loss of her husband. And so if we chop it up like that, I think that it's just crazy making, it's confusing. And the helpers who are assigned these different functions don't work well together. So I really like to work with people as whole people, and I don't know what they need. And so I'm informed by what they tell me they need. And I try to help in ways that I can, but it's always keyed off of what they initiate. Now for me, a larger social justice discourse that I'm concerned about is the maintenance of violence in our Western world particularly, and worldwide. And I think I need to use practices as a therapist that encourage nonviolence, not only in my clients, but in myself. And I think examples of diagnosing people, giving them labels that they don't believe in or don't want or don't think are accurate is an act of violence. And so I'm trying to look for ways in which my professional practices are maybe violent to the people I work with. So how can I profess nonviolence if I engage in practices that are perceived by people legitimately as violent? So I've been trying to use the nonviolence metaphor in working with families, using principles of the strike, of sit-ins, just ways to resist bad things, but without using those tactics of violence to achieve them. Academia is another place where I work, and that's filled with violent acts. We are very dominating and controlling of the way in which people learn. In social work, which is my preferred practice in education, we divide the curriculum up into, for example, macro and micro. There's like courses that are for clinical people and courses for administrative people. And then we try to, once we make these divisions, then we try, or research is another one. Research is another domain. And then we tell the student to put it all together. And I'm thinking, why did we split them apart in the first place? Why do we chunk all this stuff up in kind of neat little categories when they're really kind of part of a complex whole? So not only in the practice arena of family therapy, but also in the educating arena where I'm at, there's lots of disciplinary practices that we engage in that are not life-giving. I guess that would be another way of saying it, is the practices we use life-giving? Are they life-giving or not? And we generally know that if we think enough to ask the question. So that becomes kind of my touchstone. If I'm doing something and I'm not sure about it, I ask, in what ways does this give life? And if it doesn't, then I need to think of something else.
It's pretty powerful. Yeah. So then can you touch on a little bit about what brought you here to these other professionals and to speak to the crowd?
Well, I think it's kind of a testimony to relationships. We have a long-standing relationship with Charles Waldegrave and the Just Therapy folks from New Zealand. He visited us a couple years ago in Calgary. He goes on to New Jersey and runs into Rhea Almeida. And then he actually tells Rhea and Sally and I we should meet. We should talk, because he knew us and he felt that there was lots of resonance. So coming to this conference was our first meeting. This was a chance for us to meet Rhea. We've read her stuff, but we've not met. Carmen Knudsen-Martin, who is also on the panel with us, is a longtime friend. Jill and Jean, who are also on the panel with us, are also professional colleagues. And so it was a great chance to come together to kind of meet the people that we already knew and meet some people that we didn't know. So